Call to order, Brandon Board Meeting, February 13th, 2023. Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Here.
Lisa,
She's absent.
Herb, here. Kim,
Here.
Hillary,
Here.
Jeff, Rebecca,
Here.
Gary Richards, here. Kim,
Here.
Carly Stone.
Here. Stand for pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. So first we have the VHS student report.
Financial look today. My vice president could not make it. And please excuse my voice. I'm a little bit sick, so I sound.
Thanks for coming.
Would you like to close this? So like I said, I'm Kelly Crum. I'm the president of our Brandon High School Student Council. And what we've been up to, we just had our homecoming, which was Saturday on the 4th, and we sat up on the 3rd until around midnight. We stayed after school and decorated. And the officers in our council just submitted the award of excellence, and then there were a few other awards like our service award and our charity award. We are in our suite room right now, which is my outfit with my pink hoodie on. I just submitted a scholarship for Flint Metro League Student Council, which I'm crossing my fingers that I get. And we just had a Flint Metro League meeting on Friday, which didn't really end up being a meeting, but we went to a food bank in Flint and the officers were sorting food. So that was different. It was very fun. And we had our Power Puff game, which was on February 1st. And our pep assembly was on that Friday for the dance. So what we have coming up, we have our states conference, which we talked about a lot at the last meeting. We also have giveaways coming up. We bought like gift cards and things to give out to students that are participating in the Spirit Days. We will also be selling flowers at lunches, and that is our Spirit Week. Today was relationship status, so it's definitely a different one. And then around the school, we just crowned our king and queen before the Snowcoming dance, which was Ben Schmaltz and Allie LaRose. And our cheer senior night was on Friday that just happened. And we also have, of course, basketball games going on, which I'm sure there is one tonight. I'm not sure where it's at, and we have the guy girl dance at the assembly. And then we have the play coming up, which is the Addams Family this year. That's it.
Well, thank you. And you have to let us know about your stuff. That's
Yes,
awesome.
I'm very excited. I was the first one to submit, so
Awesome.
that should get me some good
That's
recognition.
great. Should. All right, next we have superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. Well, we have two very special guests with us this evening, our teachers of the year. I want to thank Andrea and Leslie for coming out tonight. Our very own Carly Stone, a little formal presentation she would like to make. Carly?
Thank you. Okay, Andrea, you're first. Come on up. Very good. Thank you for having us here this evening. I wanted to introduce to you Andrea Noker, who was selected as our Brandon School District Elementary Teacher of the Year. Andrea has been in the district for 28 years. She's taught first grade, third grade, and a lot of kindergarten, all at Harvey Swanson Elementary. She received 3 different nominations from parents to earn this award, and I would like to share what they indicated as being important things about Mrs. Noker, which makes her award worthy. So here we go. Mrs. Noker is amazing. She's always willing to go above and beyond for every student. Mrs. Noker is always willing to give children the extra time and attention that they need. She strives to make sure that her students are performing at their highest levels. She has devoted her life to the Brandon School District. Mrs. Noker provides a loving and safe environment in her classroom. She cares about her kindergartners and makes important personal connections with them through sharing stories. We are blessed to have had Mrs. Noker for kindergarten 3 years in a row. She makes sure that every student feels loved and safe and meets them where they are at. She would spend her time hugging and caring for any child in need as long as they need. The community connections, Mrs. Noker is a friend to all and is always great to see her friendly, familiar face. And your last name, sorry, it's gonna stop. I mean, Mrs. Noker has been a great teacher for both of my children. She's able to take a classroom of kids who are all very different levels and help each of them get ready for first grade. She cares about each student individually and she meets them where they are. She works hard to be sure that students both learn and have fun in the classroom. She helps other teachers and students however she can. Mrs. Noker has gone above and beyond for both of my children. She truly cares and wants the best for them. Because of that, she's nominated as our Brandon Elementary Teacher of the Year. Thank you.
Thank you, I'm honored. Just amazing, thank you. I don't have the words, it's just been really nice.
Thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now you know what to expect. I'd like to introduce the board to Leslie Hildebrand. Leslie has dedicated 16 years of her professional life to the Brandon School District. She is a founding member and integral member of the Brandon STEM program. She received 4 different nominations, 2 of which from students and 2 of which from parents. The reasons that these folks nominated Leslie include the following quotes. She makes time out of her busy schedule to help us. She helps struggling students grasp the concepts and goes out of her way to make everyone's day better. She goes out of her way to make games to entertain us and still teach us science. She truly cares for her students and wants them all to succeed. Mrs. H is my favorite teacher. From the parents, Mrs. Hildebrand makes a very difficult subject, physics, approachable and fun. Students actually understand concepts that she teaches. She doesn't talk at them, she interacts with the students. She celebrates their accomplishments. It's obvious that she has these kids' best interests at heart. When she announced her retirement, students clamored to take AP Physics, a class usually only taken by a few. She is amazing at not only helping students that are struggling, but also students that are advanced. She understands how to challenge advanced students without overloading them with extra work. My son has never learned more than when he was in her class. So this last one. Mrs. H took the time this year to talk with me about my high schooler who she had in class last year, not this year, about his learning style and strengths and weaknesses in order to help him find his way so he can improve his academics this year. She did not shy away from the conversation, was very willing to take the time to talk with me when I reached out, of which I greatly appreciate. I feel Mrs. H really understands the struggles of the high school boy, as she has some of her own, and is able to suggest ways to help them succeed. Okay, I like this one. Are you ready? Brandon School District is going to lose a great teacher when Mrs. Hildebrand retires this year. She's going to leave a lasting impression that I think will inspire other teachers going forward to have the positivity and support of students like she has given in her career. Thank you very much, Leslie.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, that was awesome, and we appreciate you. Okay. Oh, you're still going.
Yep, I'm still
I'm
going.
sorry.
When I get the floor.
Sorry.
Sorry to get
Okay, go ahead.
I mentioned we had two special guests, but I didn't want Mr. Sheldon to feel left out. He is also a very special guest. But seriously, when I first got here last year, I heard a lot about the Washington DC trip. And I'm very grateful that we have teachers like Jason Sheldon who are willing to coordinate and put all the extra time and effort into making that a dream for our young people. So Sheldon is here this evening. He's going to make a short presentation and open up the floor if you have questions. So Sheldon, floor is yours.
Okay, so I've not presented like this before, so I wasn't sure exactly. Maybe you'll need more Q&A than presentation, but for those who maybe are not familiar with the trip, we go each fall. We travel by bus to keep the costs reasonable, and we leave on a Wednesday evening, drive to Virginia. We go to Jamestown, the site of the first English colony in America. We go to Colonial Williamsburg. We always go to a presidential home. So this year we went to Monticello, Jefferson's home. And then we go into DC, where we see the various monuments. We used to be able to do the Capitol tour, but this year the Capitol is still not open for tours and things, but we got to go to the outside. Hit all the monuments. We go to Arlington. Each year we lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown. Brandon Middle School wreath, and 4 of our students get to do that. They submit essays in advance about why it would be important to them. And then the teachers that grade those, it's not about grammar or writing style or even their approach. It's just about the case that they make. So we've had a lot of students who have a long line of veterans in their family who, you know, they express that importance. You know, we had an 8th grader this year who athlete had to have heart surgery this year, couldn't play any sports in school this year. And he wrote about how that's been difficult for him and how something like this would help him through. And so it's really an amazing thing. And when you go there and you go to the Tomb of the Unknown and you got all these squirrely 8th graders and they sit there and they're as well behaved as we would all dream in the classroom, you see that you don't even have to say anything. They get it. They get the gravity of it. This year, there were a group of Vietnam veterans who were there, seated there, and that just sort of lent itself to that importance of it. We go to the Vietnam Memorial, and this year I found a couple names of Brandon High School graduates, and their names are on that wall. So we went through their stories. You know, one was 19 years old, you know, and these kids are 13. It's not that far away. And, you know, so it was really a cool moment there too. So it can be a challenging trip, but when you're on it and you see their faces and you feel the emotion of it and you see that they feel it, it's a really gratifying thing. As a chaperone, which I've been many times, and then this year as the group leader for the first time. We then head to Philadelphia as our last stop. Go to Independence Hall, the Ben Franklin Museum, a few other sites there in Philly, and then we drive home. So it's a total of really 4 days of sightseeing, 3 nights in hotels, and then the bus trip there and back. This year we took 60 students, 2 buses. Most of the time we had 2 buses. So this is seeing the snows. Bo was on my bus that broke down. But, first year as the group leader, I had to have every challenge thrown my way, I guess. But we made it through. I'm trying to think if there's anything else trip wise. The cost is $15.20 per student. We do work with them and through the company that we go through to provide scholarships for those that need help with it. And then there's fundraising that we can do. It's similar to the sports fundraising. The way that a lot of fundraising has gone these days is the emails to family and friends versus trying to sell something or do things along those lines. But we were able to help a couple students last year who would not have otherwise been able to go. By having a meeting early in the fall, World Strides gives $1,000 that I can then disperse to students. So we had 2 students last year and their parents were very, very grateful. And I always tell the parents at the meeting, we don't want the cost to be prohibitive to anyone. We want people to be able to go and tell us. And that's why, you know, we don't go until next October, but it was this October when I started getting the word out. So we have a full calendar year to put things together to make sure everybody can go. So, if there are any questions, anything is.
I mean, I'll say Bo had a great time, even though you broke down, I didn't even hear about that from him. It's such a great trip, and I was getting pictures the whole time, and he's talking about it, and he said something the other day, he's like, Mom, that was such a great trip. I love Washington DC. So I thought that was really cool how into it he is. I mean, I know I've had one other go, because 2 of my kids were in years that you guys didn't go. But I think it's a great trip, and I appreciate you putting so much effort into making it happen for our kids.
It actually reminds me, like, as a history teacher too, I can't tell you how many times I refer to.
Right.
We're going to be there, or we were there, and I feel kind of bad for the kids who don't go, because I feel like I'm doing it a lot, but it's. Remember when we were there? You go to Independence Hall, we're in the room where the Declaration is signed, that kind of stuff, even for 8th graders. It connects it for them, I think.
For sure.
And then there's the piece where they're on a trip without mom and dad for the first time.
Like a rite of passage, you know?
They got security guards in the halls, so.
So I can't get my 3 sons out of the house on time, trying to get 60 of them out of a hotel room. I missed Mr. Hendershot.
Oh,
It
yeah.
used to be good cop, bad cop. I had to be a little more bad cop. But it's fun, and it's a lot of stories I was sharing with some of the teachers and administrators over here, some of the laughs that we had this year, even in those moments where the bus was broke down and we were stranded in a rest stop. The kids were great, and it's a memory. And I told some of the other teachers that it's probably gonna end up in their graduation speech, so valedictorian, probably talk about them surviving 6 hours in a rest stop in Ohio. But yeah, there's a lot to it, and the kids get to spend their own money and make their own choices in some ways, and there's a lot of good to it, the independence of it. Some of them spend all their money at the first rest stops. There's a lot of really good parts of the trip.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that.
Sure.
Jason, you don't have to stay out the whole night here either. If you need to go, you can.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Next up, we have superintendent search discussion with John Silveri from the Michigan Leadership Institute. Hi.
So, let me frame the discussion this way initially, as I understand it. There was an initial discussion with Charlie Stone. A couple of members of the board were empowered to do so, just to explore the possibility with her to assess her interest in the possibility of taking another step and becoming your next superintendent. And the response from her was very positive. So that leads us to now. This discussion is intended just to determine together what additional steps you may want to take in order to make the decision as to whether or not you collectively would like to select her as your next superintendent. So, as some of you know from experience, typically for the superintendent search, it's going to include multiple candidates, multiple steps. It's different because this is someone you know exceedingly well. You're not comparing one person to another, you're just determining whether somebody who you already know and think highly of has the wherewithal to take that next step, to take on this important role in your district. So I'll tell you what I'm thinking and give you a chance to respond, and I would very much like this to be a two-way dialogue, but I would think minimally what you want to do, which you don't even have to. Technically, if you really chose to, you could just go ahead and make that decision to appoint her as a board, take that action. But I think what makes sense is to publicly go ahead and conduct at least one interview with Carly. And I think for your benefit would be, as well as you know her from her as the current position, there may well be questions you have about her ability to take that next step and take on this critical role for you and your kids. So to have the chance to think about what questions you may want to ask, to answer those unanswered questions in your mind and come to the point where you feel confident in whatever decision you make, I think would be wise. So I would be looking at least at one comprehensive interview. When I say comprehensive, I would suggest that each member of the board has at least 3 to 4 questions that you're going to be asking. I would say as many as 4. What we'd want to talk about is how you would determine which questions to ask, how we put those together. But we would handle it as a formal public interview, much like you did when you went through the interviews previously. But it would simply be with Carly. And because it's one candidate, we wouldn't time it this time. We would have a set number of questions and simply give you the chance to ask questions, give her the chance to respond. And then you can assess where you want to go from there. You would have some options even then, whatever night we conduct that interview. I would suggest you continue to collect feedback from audience members who are present at the time, as well as those who may be watching online. So you'll want to take the time to have the chance to go through that feedback and consider that before you make any final decision. So another decision you'd have to make after choosing the night you'd want to interview is, would you want to take a break at that time? Give yourself just a chance to react to what you just heard. Give yourselves the chance to look at the feedback that you will have received. And then come back together that night and make a decision as to where you go from there. Or like you did previously, you could conduct that interview, leave the meeting, a chance to look at feedback more slowly, and come back on a separate night to make that decision, which would, the negative to that is it slows the process down, right? So I think you could well do it in one night. In terms of how lengthy a break you're going to take, I would suggest that you take as much time as you may need to very thoroughly look at that feedback and be ready to come back and confidently express how you feel. I would think at that time you're going to have 3 choices, the 3 ways you can go in terms of a decision you make. One would be for you to determine that perhaps you believe that she's not ready. And so what you would be looking for is to expand the search at that point. You may feel that she may be the right person, but you're not quite certain and feel that perhaps we need to add another step. Or you could feel at that point very confident that she is the right person to lead your district, and you could weigh in on that way. Like we did before, I would suggest when we get to that point, you come back after the break, take your seats, that I would facilitate this, but we could go around and at each one of you express where you land in terms of those 3 choices. You'd like to expand the search, you'd like to add an additional step, or you feel confident that she's the right choice to be your next superintendent. So there may be some evident consensus there with the 6 of you tonight. Hopefully there'd be 7, but 7 of you, hopefully we would have 4 or more of you who would land in the same place. That'll make the decision as to where to go from there easy. If it's a split decision, we would simply talk a little bit further and try to come to some consensus as to what we do. Of course, you have the option to, when we talk about the possibility of adding additional steps, if you feel strongly enough about it, we could talk about that now and you could predetermine that. I'm suggesting to you that I think initially, again, because you know her so well, I don't know that that's necessary. I think you're okay by taking that initial step of conducting the first interview and then weighing in on how you're feeling about that decision at that time. So that's enough for me. I think at the moment, anyway, I'm interested to hear what you have to say and how you feel about that. And if you have any other thoughts or suggestions as to what we may do different.
I have a couple questions. So, when we pick a date and set up a meeting, do we have to have determined prior if we want to take a recess and then decide, or if we want to have a separate meeting? Is that something we need to decide prior?
Well, do you have to? No, I would suggest that you do. I think
Okay.
you're better off doing that. Because then you can get those meetings on the books. People's calendars don't tend to do anything but get more full. So I think the sooner, if you were going to schedule another meeting, get that in the books, the better off you are. And it may even be, if you find difficulty finding time for that second meeting, that may lead you more towards saying, let's use that first night. The one thing you don't want to do, honestly, is you don't want to feel rushed into making a decision, pressured into making a decision. First and foremost, you don't want to feel that way. Secondly, you don't want to have that impression left by any member of your district and community, right? This needs to be a proactive, positive decision that you're selecting her, if that's where you go with this, because you fully believe that she's the right person for the job.
So how does getting feedback, if we have an interview and we're asking for feedback, I understand like the people that are here, but how does that look for getting feedback quickly from people outside to be able to look at and come, if we were to take a recess, and how does that look?
You could potentially provide a link. I've had experience with this where people who are participating virtually were given a link through which they could provide feedback. So that would be instantaneous. And frankly, because there'd be, if you're doing it that night, because there'd be a bit of a time crunch, you would want to let them know that it's not something they could ponder and give you feedback a few hours later or the next day, that it would need to be pretty immediate. And once they hear the interview, they want their feedback considered, they have to give you immediate feedback so that you have the time to consider that.
Okay, and then are you going to have some interview questions for us to look at and review to decide like we did before?
Yes,
Okay.
that we have. Stroke on hand.
Oh,
In your folder. So what I've given you are just basically the complete set of options that we normally give as possibilities for first or second round questions. I've just given them all to you because if we're just kind of taking initially at least one shot at this, there's no reason you can't consider the possibility of any of these questions. I want to add though, these are to be helpful to you. We may find some of these questions to be highly relevant and really helpful, and it may be that easy that you're, and I'm going to suggest, by the way, when I say each of you might ask 4, that would be about the right amount. I'm going to suggest you overshoot a little bit and submit, I would say up to 6, because there may be some redundancy in what you submit. Right, I may need to make some decisions in that way. So if you overshoot the mark a little bit, you're pretty safe that at least 4 of your questions will be included. So of those you see, you can choose from those. You could choose to modify anything that you see there. It doesn't have to be exactly word for word what you see. It could be a question of your own. What I want you to think about is what questions legitimately do you have? Are there things that you might be wondering about that you need to hear from her to gain more confidence that she's the right person? So you want to frame a question around that. Some of these you might find to be kind of thought starters, but it could be a question that just comes from your own mind because it's something that legitimately you're wondering about and would like to give her the opportunity to speak to. That's absolutely fine. Frankly, all of your questions could be something that goes along those lines. So you have the option to see a lot of questions there that could be thought starters. You could pick those verbatim, you can change them. Or you could come up with questions on your own that you just think are important to ask at this point to give you the information you need to make a confident decision.
and so what would be our deadline? How far in advance from a meeting we choose will we need to have these questions to you?
Well, I would need to, as far as how far in advance of the meeting, I want to have enough time to get them together, get a draft to you to consider prior to. So normally, let's say if the meeting was middle of a week, right? I would like to be able to get those to you, a draft of those to you by the prior Friday, let's say, give you a chance to take a look if you're familiar with them. So the turnaround would be fairly quick. But again, remember what we're asking, 4 to 6 questions, at least 4. I would suggest up to 6 that you would submit. It's not a ton. You've got a lot of options there to consider. That help?
What other questions? Do we want to talk dates then?
We do.
Okay. So I know that looking at our schedules, one of the dates that I had in mind if we were to do this would be the 21st, which is next Tuesday. I know Lisa's not here, but we'll answer for her. So are we okay with the 21st? You look at your.
I can be here on the 21st. And I would be present and I would help facilitate this like I would for any other interview. I should add, by the way, that in terms of the application process too, we've already created a link in anticipation of a positive response. We felt like what's the worst thing that could happen, right? If we get Carly working on an application and you decide not to take this direction, she will have spent a little bit of time, but no real harm done. But in terms of the timeline, I thought it would be better to give her additional time and give her a chance to get started. So she will have completed the full application within the frontline system that we normally use, as well as a cover letter and a resume, all of which we would provide to you in advance of the interview.
Okay, so since the 21st is next Tuesday.
You have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just wondering, I think what you were gonna ask, can we get all that done by the 21st? Is that what you were thinking?
Just, yeah, I want to know what.
Between Carly and you and,
This should come as no surprise to you, but I believe Carly has completed all of the application materials already. So I don't think that's an issue in that way. So it really would come down to you folks submitting the questions and me getting them together for you. And like before, I would get them to you electronically just so you could be familiar with them before the interview. But I would put a hard copy in your hands that night with lots of room for notes, so you can take notes. And as you then reflect, as you take a break afterward or take a longer break and come back, you have the chance to review your own notes as you and your materials as you're considering where to go with this. So if you're gonna have a meeting on Tuesday, as far as when to get the questions to me.
Yeah.
Let me just start with this. Is it unreasonable for you to get those 4 to 6 questions to me by, I'm gonna say end of the day Wednesday or even like first thing Thursday morning? Is that possible?
Yeah. We can do that.
And you can send them directly to me. I can leave you the business card. That folks here have my email address, but I'll leave that with you anyway, just so it's convenient. You can send those directly to me.
Okay.
So my goal will be to turn around and get those back to you, put together in the format that you'll see on the 21st by this Friday.
Just remind everybody, there's no school on the 21st, and that will make it difficult for people to attend. And the 22nd.
I mean, we do have it available Zoom.
Yeah, but. No, people will be able to-
no flexibility. Can we do?
Is the 20, what does the 22nd look like, John?
I'm unavailable. I have a commitment to another district. Then I will be out of town till the 28th. Could be here on the 20th.
So the 21st is no school, the 20th and the 21st, no school. The meeting would be in the evening on the 21st. We do have school the 22nd, correct?
Yeah.
And that'd still be, the 21st would be 7 p.m.-ish, right? Or
6:37. I mean,
It really comes down to, in part, timing, I suppose. How much you want to expedite this and make the decision. And again, I'm not suggesting if you want to rush a decision, but the sooner you start the process, the sooner you'll be in a position to make that decision and begin the transition.
Right.
So 21st from that standpoint would be ideal, even though it sounds like it might be a little bit less than ideal because it's at the tail end that evening of that winter break.
Right, but if we're having it on Zoom and we're allowing people to do questions online,
Not questions, but feedback.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
feedback online. What are,
I like that. I mean, I think that's fair. We can offer it on Zoom for parents and.
I think it's a lot to ask the community, but I don't think we have any other options. That's where I stand. I think that we need to move swiftly. And do what we can.
I think that the 21st would be okay for the reasons that it'll be broadcast and. You know, this isn't. I feel like if there's questions, I think they're out there or feedback already. I mean, because she's a part of our district, that can be something that,
True, I mean, people always have the opportunity to provide their feedback to the board on any topic imaginable, right? Either by coming to a meeting and doing so, they can shoot you an email, they can, in some cases, it's text you, right? And I'm sure that happens already. So frankly, I would suggest that if there are folks within the district who know her well enough that they feel like they're already in a position based on what they know to offer an opinion, they certainly don't have to hold back. Wait until the 21st. The feedback on the 21st is a little bit more about what their reaction is to the interview. And did that increase their confidence level? Did it just reinforce what they already know? Did it raise some red flags with them? So they could actually potentially share both. Here's what I think based on what I already know. And following the interview, here's what my reaction is. It's going to change my perspective, if at all.
okay.
Can we get out to the community and just as parents, you know, what we're doing and, you know, that we're gonna have a Zoom meeting on the 21st. If you're interested, please, you know, watch and, you know, really place some good marketing under that just to get the word out.
I mean, we can.
Do what we
We can do
can.
that. I mean, we have to post it anyway.
Mhm.
That's required. So we will do that. I mean, letting,
Something in the
we can-
paper, I don't know, something
I don't know
in the
about paper, but-
paper,
maybe.
in the Citizen.
Well, definitely we can get something out where we're communicating that this is what we're doing and. We can figure something out, the best way to communicate that to our community.
Yeah, and you want to be as transparent about it as
Right.
possible, right? This is happening in public eye and it needs to. So by all means, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. So do we want to add this then to the other? Action items that we have to,
What would be the setback if we push to the 28th? And they kind of give everybody,
Is he available on the 20th? You said you were.
I am on the 28th,
Oh, okay.
right? I wouldn't have another available late after the 21st until the 28th.
that gives everybody to get back and get maybe a little more input. Just sorry.
so are you, what does it look like for availability on the 28th?
I'm good for the 28th.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
I don't know about Lisa, that's the only one I don't know.
Okay.
Do we have to put this on the agenda tonight? Does it have to be an official motion to add this? If we look and we're able to contact Lisa to see what date works for her, or what would be the best?
In that case, I don't think that. If you wanted to make sure that all the board members could be present, go ahead and add it, and you could still just.
Okay, and so we don't have to have an action item to add this meeting, right? Just like any other meeting?
Right.
Okay, so we can make sure, see what Lisa's schedule is too, and then look at those two dates and pick one. Does that sound
Yes.
doable?
Yeah, but you would have to move quickly, because again, if you decide to roll with the 21st, you're all gonna have to get interview questions to me pretty
Right.
quickly.
Right,
Maybe we should just do that anyway.
yeah,
Get them to you quickly
There you go.
that way.
Regardless.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
and then we'll be prepared and, I'll talk to Lisa.
I appreciate that. In the meantime, then I'll hold both of those dates. open,
Okay,
So that I'll be available.
Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate it.
And then you want to talk a little bit more now at all about whether or not you feel confident that you could come back after taking a break that night. Kind of share, again, you don't have to, it could be one of those three options I described. Or do you want to in advance schedule a follow-up? I guess you have to pick two dates because you have two possible dates for the meeting too.
I mean, if I'm going on how our interviews went prior and what our thoughts were, I would feel comfortable having a recess and giving us enough time to look at any feedback and come back to a decision.
All on the same night.
Yes, however, if we are feeling like we would want a second meeting, then yeah.
I'm going to suggest you decide now, because then the decision is going to have to be, we're going to go with these two
Right.
dates or these two dates. Right? What you're looking at is availability. I think you need to make a decision first. Are you going to add that second meeting for a decision or are you not? So we need to look at a date that accompanies the 21st and a date that accompanies the 28th.
So would we want to set a second date, or would you feel comfortable having a recess with no limit and coming back and making the decision?
I would feel comfortable with recess. Coming back, you would recess and making a decision.
I think it kind of depends for me what the feedback is and what we're getting from the questions, you know, I mean, so I'm wondering, can we schedule two and then cancel it if we're all in, you know, feeling like we can make a decision? I just don't know what we're not gonna know, I guess.
Well, and again, you know, if the consensus of the board, if 4 or more of you that night come back after a break and say, I'm not ready to make a decision yet. I think at that point, what we would need to do is talk then about what comes next. What do we need to add in the process to get you to the point of your confidence? So I don't know if that's where we are. I don't think we need to set a second meeting yet. And we would just have that dialogue that night, if that's where the board is. That makes sense.
Okay.
So let me say this, so all the opportunities here, in case I don't want to forget to say this, I think it's important. Let's suppose for a minute, I'm just going to roll with this example, just use it as an example because we're not sure we're doing this yet. Let's say we were doing the interview on the 21st. You took a break, as long as you need. You're deliberating, looking at feedback, you come back. And you kind of decide at that time what it is that you want to do. I mean, I think what would be important is if there's a split decision, it's possible, right? You may, with 7 of you, it may be that, again, I'll use this example. Suppose 5 of you say, we want to hire her. One says, I think we need to expand the search, and one says, I need more time. Well, the consensus of the board at that point would be to hire her. So someone would make a motion to that effect, wherever the consensus lies, right? Whatever that was, but give an example. If that's the choice, you would make a motion, it would be seconded, you could have any further dialogue. Where I'd want you to be careful, by the way, if for whatever reason you felt like you needed to expand the search, what you want to avoid is making your case by making critical comments about Carly. You never want to do that about candidates in public, right? So you would just keep it simple. I'm not sure that that's the right choice, and I feel like we need to expand the search. You could say that without saying anything critical, right? But once you all had the chance to weigh in, if that's the choice, is to select her. And all 7 of you haven't unanimously stated that. The strong advice I would give you is once the motion is made, that all 7 of you vote yes. Even if that wasn't your choice. Bear in mind, you will have said publicly that either you weren't sure yet, or you thought maybe you needed to expand the search. So you're not being disingenuous at that point. Everybody will have heard that publicly, right? But it's really important, I think, that once it's obvious that a decision has been reached, all that's left is the vote, right? If enough of you publicly have already said, here's where I'm going to go on this. You want, for the sake of being supportive of the person who's obviously about to become your next superintendent, and to show unity as a board, I think at that point, my strong advice, not a mandate, but advice, is to go ahead and vote yes in support of the motion, even if you expressed a different opinion initially. Your choice. Any other questions for me? So you're going to get back to me to confirm 21st or 28th, right?
I will.
But so you're all going to pass out cards. You're going to get back to me with interview questions. At least 4, hopefully as many as 6.
Thank you.
Sure. And addresses there. Get those to me no later than Thursday morning. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John.
Sure.
No public comments.
No public comments.
I'll look here. No hands raised here. No hands raised here.
Okay. Then our next item is approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Move the Brandon Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Herb, yes. Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, Rebecca.
Yes. All right, that passes. And then informational and discussion items, board reports. Does anybody have anything to report this? No, we've been here just, every week. Yeah.
Good evening. I have 2 items tonight to discuss with the board. The first is going to be added action items tonight for our classroom technology upgrade. I think as everyone but Herb and Jane know, we've spent the last year, one of the projects in the bond was to upgrade the classrooms, their ability to integrate technology. So I've got Thomas here tonight. Come on up, Thomas. Thomas is our Director of Technology. And just briefly, we started committees before Thomas was even here, the other Thomas, last January, February. We had teachers on the committee, myself, Thomas Janchowski, principals were on the committee. And we sent 8 teachers, I believe, including plus Thomas to McCall, which is a big technology demonstration type meeting. These meetings went on throughout the summer, and in September we realized that we needed some direction perhaps. So we asked the board, and the board approved for us to hire Plant Moran. They have a technology consulting services. So we're going to spend a lot of money on this. We wanted to make sure we got it right. So Alan McCarrick, hi Alan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you just fine, and I'll turn my video on.
Okay, great, thank you. Alan is here to represent Plant Moran. They've done a wonderful job partnering with us to get to this point of the project. Thomas is going to talk about from the district side, and if you have any questions, let us know. So, Thomas?
Yes, thank you, everybody. Good to be here and good to see all of you and some fresh faces. Welcome. Yeah, so how did we get here? We have some aging hardware in the district, which thankfully we have this bond, and we want to make sure that we're spending it the right way. As Jan was saying, we didn't think we could devote enough resources individually to it to make it the best it could be, and we happened to find Plant Moran to help us out there on kind of the project management side and kind of bringing this all into the station with things that they have done in a repeatable process. So what we are looking at that we slid into your packets today
Sorry, you have a.
is a couple of different items, basically from 3 vendors. So we have ended up bidding out the structured cabling for this project, which will be providing internet connection to the interactive flat panels, which is the second part of the project. So that is just base connectivity. We had one vendor bid that, so they are the one we're going to be working with there. On the second item, we're looking at in concert with the room technology replacing our Wi-Fi, which is aging. It's about 10 years and to the end of its supporting life. So to make the interactive flat panels in the rooms for the teachers and students work the best they can. That means they need good internet connection so we can share screens up there and do all that good stuff. So we've got bids on that, and happy to select the lower bid on that. I'm comfortable with that, and I'll plan to talk a little bit more about that. And then the actual meat and potatoes of the room technology, we're planning to replace our aging and failing projectors with interactive flat panels. So a lot more in-depth experience, nice bright screens, not worrying about bulbs burning out. Really shooting for this initiative is really going to solve a lot of the problems we get on a day-to-day basis in IT. I guarantee you every week there's going to be multiple projectors that we have to go replace the bulbs or get a new projector in there. Room audio, another common issue, and then Wi-Fi. Lots of students having issues with current Wi-Fi. So we're kind of hitting all the main areas that drag a lot of time away from me and my team being able to do other things that help the students and staff here in the district. So yeah, Plant Moran has been great in kind of getting this all tidied up and put together in a nice package. I worked to follow up these vendors and get the references, got basically glowing references from each of the 3 vendors we plan on using. So feeling really comfortable there, especially with some of our other experience with another vendor I won't talk about right now. So yeah, I'm feeling good about this, and maybe Alan, you can follow up with a little info on your end.
Yeah, sure. So as Thomas mentioned, well, first of all, thank you all for, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. Had some scheduling conflicts, so I'm joining you virtually, and hopefully that's okay. And this works out well. But yeah, there's several projects. I would note that so there's bond funds involved, but additionally for the structured cabling in the wireless project, the district will only be billed 30% of the project, and the other 70% would be through E-rate funding. And the vendors have indicated that they will submit that directly to USAC. So so that's one thing I just wanted to point out. And the projects are kind of complementary. The classroom AV project, I don't know how in depth you want me to go, but essentially there was a Plant Moran had staff that met with the district's technology committee to hone in on needs. The key needs were interactivity and ability to cast from a device to the screens. And so multiple brands of product were demonstrated within the district. And through that process, it kind of distilled down to two key products, one from Smart, one from Boxlight. And so what the district is looking at is the Boxlight solution. It worked the best in terms of the ability. It was the only solution that fully met the district's needs. We'll put it that way. And so, we worked with the district to walk buildings, solicit feedback from school principals and review feedback. And then the vendors that provide the two leading products, which was Smart and the Boxlight products, had bids with other Oakland County school districts, and they were willing to extend that pricing to Brandon School District. Along with that, we had them provide us pricing through REMC, which REMC is essentially a cooperative purchasing vehicle where commodity hardware is pre-bid and negotiated at discounted prices, and school districts are able to purchase off that. But that being said, the pricing that was afforded through the Oakland County School District pricing that the vendors extended to Brandon was actually lower than REMC. And our comparison of other competitively bid solutions, that we believe the district is receiving better pricing than you could have received even if you went to a competitive bid. So, from our perspective, you should feel very comfortable with the pricing that you're getting through the classroom audiovisual. Along with that, I would say in your packet, you have the recommendation letter that we submitted for the classroom audiovisual. And we noted that there was a typo in there for the 10% contingency. So anybody who's good at math may have noticed that. And so we can submit a corrected version of that. So my apologies for that. So the contingency should be 93,000, not 9,300. I'll pause there briefly if anybody has any questions before we talk about the structured cabling and wireless.
I'll just say that our bond budget is $1.2 million. So this project, because of the E-rate, we're only going to pay 30% of the wireless and cabling. We're going to come in under budget by, I'm going to say 100,000, maybe a little bit more. So that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And for the structured cabling and wireless, as Thomas mentioned, we did facilitate a competitive bid process. We received 2 proposals for the wireless network and only one proposal for the structured cabling. For the wireless solution, Intercomp was selected as came in as the lowest qualified vendor with Cisco Meraki solution, which is what we're seeing across many school districts is it's a leading product in the market, and it's a rock solid solution, and they're coming in very competitively. On the structured cabling, we only had one vendor, qualified vendor. We've worked with Plant Moran. We work with many districts, and a lot of these vendors we interact with quite a bit. And both vendors, we can say are solid vendors that, in our experience, and are capable of delivering on time and within budget as they've submitted. So one of the things, we had hoped to get more bids on the structured cabling, but what we're seeing in the market is vendors aren't necessarily bidding when there isn't large new construction or full building projects. So this is, a little bit more tricky when it's single cables to each individual classroom. So, but we still feel very comfortable with the bid that was presented. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
Good.
All right, thank you. I'll turn it back over to you, Thomas.
Any questions for me on this side? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the next topic I wanted to talk about, this will be brief. I did hand out this report. As you know, we bid on the street last week for custodial services. We've had problems for months with our current company. The buildings just aren't where they need to be. We've really been pushing that. So we've got that bid out. The other side of that, I decided we needed to look at our equipment. So I've been here 12 years and we have not bought, you know, a floor scrubber, that type of equipment. So Nichols, our vendor, they came out, you guys, and they did this inventory for us. And so that's what you've got here, and everything highlighted in pink shows equipment that is in poor condition. I thought best to focus on the equipment in poor condition. So what we're doing is all this equipment in poor condition is no longer working. Found out, I didn't know DeAmber had included us in, that the floor scrubbers to Harvey Swanson aren't working. Well, if you don't have proper equipment, you're probably not going to get the floors, the buildings as clean as they need to be. So what we're going to do, we've met, and we met last week with Nichols, and Nichols is first they're going to take the high school equipment and it's not working, put it on their truck, they're going to take it into their shop and they're going to do a complete evaluation. It takes about 10 days. Then I'd asked them to add a column, what it would cost to repair, and then new. So we're going to meet back in on March 20th and look at the price, because these floor scrubbers are expensive. So decide, I'll have Mark there, Mark Evans, myself, and the vendors, and we're going to decide what we think we need to purchase. And then I'll be coming back to the board to talk about potentially going out for an RFP. We would have to bid this. Again, this is just looking at it, and the life of this equipment is past. So this would be a good time, as we're trying to do the best we can do to keep our buildings looking in tip-top shape. So just wanted to give the board a heads up looking into this, and I plan to come to the next board meeting and talk about perhaps how many new floor scrubbers or whatever it might be that we would like to look into, and then we would do the RFP and go from there. So any questions? Oh, thank you.
Well, actually, I have one. So then you're going to present this at the meeting on March 20th, not your meeting back. You're meeting back with them prior to that.
I'm meeting back with them prior, and
Okay.
then I'll get the information. We'll have a new spreadsheet, and I'll talk to you about, what we are recommending. And then, I'm anticipating, we'll want to go out for RFP. I'm anticipating it's going to be over 28,000. Just looking at the equipment list. So we'll go from there. I wanted to give you a heads up.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Dan. All right. So we have, before we go to action items, we have to do amend the agenda, right? Maria, we do this one first. Okay. So can I get a motion to amend the agenda? It's the second sheet.
Move the Brandon Board of Education approve to add the action items to the agenda. Am I doing that?
Mhm.
Letter D, recommend to award the technology classroom wireless project. Letter E, recommend to award the classroom technology cabling project. Letter F, recommend to award the classroom AV project.
Yeah. Mhm. Can I get a support?
Support.
Okay. Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Kurt. Yes. Lisa. There. Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, Rebecca.
Yes.
All right.
All right. So now we move on to our action items. Those we add to the end. So we're gonna start with A.
And then.
Okay. So approval to purchase Truant Policy Service.
Move the Brandon Board of Education approve to move forward with purchasing Troon Policy Service as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Herb,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, yes. Rebecca,
Yes. Approval of BMS eighth grade students overnight extended trip to Washington DC.
Move the Brandon Board of Education approve the Brandon Middle School overnight extended trip to Washington DC, October 18th through 23rd, 2023, as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Herb,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, Rebecca,
Yes. Approval of human resource report.
Move the Brandon Board of Education approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Can I get a,
Second. Support.
any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Herb,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, Rebecca,
Yes. Letter. Recommend to award the technology classroom wireless project.
Move the Brandon Board of Education recommend to award the Technology Classroom Wireless Project to Intercomp TSG in the amount of $158,000, $158,484,000.77 as presented.
Support. Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Herb,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, Rebecca,
Yes. Recommend to award the classroom technology cabling project.
Move the Brandon Board of Education recommend to award the Classroom Technology Cabling Project to Vector Tech Group in the amount of $59,026.25 as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Hillary,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Jeff,
Is that a yes from you, Jeff?
yes. Herb,
Yes.
Jane, Rebecca,
Yes. Recommend to award the classroom AV project.
Move the Brandon Board of Education recommend to award the classroom AV project to DAT via the REMC contract in the amount of $934,923 as presented.
support.
Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Herb,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, Rebecca,
Yes. All right, and now we will be moving into closed session. We're not done. All right. Can I get a motion to go to closed session?
Move the Brandon Board of Education approve to enter a closed session for the purpose of security planning as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Jane,
Yes.
Herb,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Jeff, yes, Rebecca.
Yes. All right.